What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. And it's the final one of the season because the Boston Celtics have just won the NBA Finals. They closed out the Mavericks in Game 5 at home, bouncing back in a big way after that historic blowout in Game 4 in Dallas, returning the favor with a blowout of their own, winning by 18 points, and they were up by 24 a lot of this game. Doing a lot of the same stuff they did for a majority of this series where they were clearly the better team. Don't have a lot of comments to make on this game in particular. They took away lobs, took away corner threes, played great individual defense on Kyrie and Luka. They just shut everything down and were the dominant team they were this entire season to raise banner 18 the most in NBA history. As usual, it was a team effort. Jayson Tatum had his best game of the finals, 31 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists with a couple of steals, 46% from the field. Jaylen Brown, 21, 8, 6, and 2, shot just 30%, but played the primary defender role on Luka Doncic and did that all throughout the series. He was amazing. Horford hit a couple of threes, finished with 9 points, 9 rebounds, a couple of assists and steals. Derrick with 4 threes. Jrue Holiday, great defense as usual, had 15 points, 11 rebounds. 2-4 shooting from Kristaps. Porzingis didn't do a lot in his 16 minutes, but was impactful. You could tell he wasn't 100%, was moving way slower than usual, but he was still a force to be reckoned with out there, especially down low, giving them a lot of height around the rim. Sam Hauser hit some threes. Peyton Pritchard had a half-court three, his second one of the series. And the Celtics get it done to what should be the surprise of literally nobody. This was the best team the entire season. From the beginning of the year, I picked them to win the championship. Coming into the playoffs, I picked them to win it all. Going into the finals, I picked them to win it all. To me, the Celtics were kind of always inevitable. When you took a look at how talented they were, when we watched them all throughout the regular season play like the best team in the league, and not just the best team in the league, this is a squad that was historically good. They were top 5 in both offensive and defensive net rating. They finished with the overall 4th highest net rating ever. They had a ridiculous record. They ran away with the Eastern Conference. They finished with a record of 80-21 on the season. Great three-point shooters everywhere. Great top-end talent. There was really no weakness at all with the Celtics squad. They were always the best team in the league, and I don't think people ever really wanted to agree or accept that, because I remember going into the playoffs when I predicted the Celtics to win, and even earlier on, and I mentioned this in a video a few of them ago, where I talked about how the Celtics aren't the same team. I put out a tweet saying that that was the case, and people said that I was wrong, that it was just going to be a matter of time before the Celtics fell apart, and I just don't think anybody ever realized, or at least most people didn't, that this was a special group. We're going to look back, and this was a historic season from the Boston Celtics. Whether you take a look at the numbers, the eye test, the overall record, everything they did screamed one of the better teams we've seen in recent NBA history. And again, it came from all over the place, whether it was the duo of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who for years people were saying, blow it up, break up this duo. They can't do it as the top 2 guys on the team. Here they are, and they did exactly that. Jaylen Brown ends up winning the Finals MVP award out of the 2 of them. I think it could have gone either way. Honestly, my pick was probably Jayson Tatum. With this game he had, his great playmaking all throughout the series, the fact that his efficiency wasn't that much worse than Jaylen Brown, they were pretty close and he had better numbers. I would have given it to Jayson Tatum. I think the reason why the Celtics had so many great looks was because of the pressure he demanded on the offensive end, while also playing defensively on a lot of their bigs. But at the same time, Jaylen Brown had similar numbers. He had better efficiency, was the primary defender in Luka, who you have to slow down if you want to stop the Mavericks, and he did that. You could have gone either way, but regardless, these 2 guys were the best 2 on a championship team, and that was something that many people said couldn't be done, that they could not lead them to a title. Here they are. They've done that, and it's a story of triumph for both of these guys. Whether it was Jayson Tatum, who's continuous to be called not a top 10 player, not actually being that good, he gets done after 2022, horrific in the finals this year. He was a lot better. I don't think the numbers are going to do justice what he did out there on the court throughout this series. And then for Jaylen Brown, last year in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Heat, he had the worst playoff series of his entire career, just completely collapsed, all the left-handed dribbling jokes that started to pop up. And then in the offseason, they give him $300 million, which was deserved, because Jaylen Brown is really good and they really had no choice. And then people are clowning him, saying that it's the worst contract in NBA history. And here he is raising the Finals MVP trophy. Even if you go back to when he was drafted 3rd overall, I remember there were a lot of takes about that being a reach and a bad decision by the Celtics. When they gave him his first big contract, you can find old tweets surrounding that. I don't remember what year it was in particular, but people were saying that that was a disastrous contract at the time too. Jaylen Brown has continuously been doubted, and now he is in the record books as a Finals MVP. MVP. He's made All-Star games. He's made All-NBA appearances. Same thing with Jayson Tatum. This is a duo that a lot of people said couldn't get it done, and they did that. We've also got to talk about how Brad Stevens revolutionized this roster, made continuous changes rather than sticking with the status quo, where last year they were a game away from making the finals. He could have just run it back and instead flipped Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Grant Williams, guys like that, who a lot of them, particularly like Marcus Smart and Robert Williams, were some big fan favorites, and people were like, hey, they're going to really miss these guys, but they got clear upgrades with Kristaps, Porzingis, and Jrue Holiday. Each of them played a massive role in this run. KP didn't play a lot in the playoffs. When he did play, he was phenomenal, but really throughout the regular season was just dominant on both ends. Last year in Washington, he had the best year of his career individually, and not a lot of people watched that or realized because the Wizards were really bad, and this year I think a lot of people realized on a bright stage just how good and impactful he can be in this winning situation. Huge shout to KP, what he did all year. And then you look at Jrue Holiday, where last year the Milwaukee Bucks lose in the first round, and he gets clowned a lot because Jimmy Butler torched him, which Jimmy Butler was torching everybody out there. He had a couple pretty inefficient playoff runs, and it reached the point where the Bucks decided it was better to go ahead and upgrade, bringing in Damian Lillard. And I do think that's a trade that they probably would go back and make again, but it's got to feel good for Jrue Holiday, going from the Bucks, one of the Celtics' biggest rivals, trading him away to Portland, and then he gets picked up by the Celtics, and now was one of the most impactful players on this championship team. Shot like, I think, 50, 40, 90, or right around that, was really grabbing rebounds like crazy, especially on the offensive board. He was diamonding up, playing great defense. Jrue did everything all throughout the season, just such a steady presence, and that's the value of it, having Jrue be like your fifth option out there. Brad Stevens, that's one of the things that he did really well, is put so much talent on this team to maximize everybody, because Jrue is going to have a lot of inefficient runs when he's your fifth guy, and it allows him to really focus on that defense. Kristaps, you put him in this tertiary role next to Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, it maximizes his talent. What you did with Derrick White, that trade was also a fleece to give up like Romeo Langford, Josh Richardson, a first-round pick, and a swap in the future that doesn't matter. None of that matters because they won a championship, even if that swap somehow ends up being good. Like, Derrick White was so big, has become an all-defensive player, become a really efficient scorer, a great initiator for them. We saw massive growth from him last season in the absence of Marcus Smart at times, so they were willing to trade Smart away even before getting Jrue Holiday because they believe that Derrick White could step up, and then you add Jrue to him. It's arguably the best defensive backcourt we've ever seen, and I said that in a video not too long ago, and there was one comment that was like, what are you talking about? It's rare ever that you've seen two guys both make an all-defensive team in the same backcourt, especially when you talk about Jrue, who a lot of people in the league will tell you is maybe the best perimeter defender in the entire association. So they are deserving of that title. You saw what they did all throughout the season, all throughout the playoffs. This team is just full of great defenders, great scorers. Brad Stevens, again, you could have given him Finals MVP for what he did all throughout this year. So big shout to him, going from one of the best coaches in the league to one of the best general managers. And then also got to give a shout to Joe Mazzulla, a coach that was ridiculed by a lot of people throughout the season coming into the year. Many people unsure if he was even a good coach. I remember after last year, after the Celtics lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, there were even some people calling for his job, and then here he is as the leader of one of the most efficient offenses ever, a historic team. He really made a fan out of me throughout this run. I've been extremely impressed. I've really liked watching all the mic'd up moments with him in the huddles. The players clearly buy a lot into his philosophy. Derrick White, after the game, was in a post-game press conference and was asked about Joe Mazzulla and started to get choked up talking about him, said, I love him, I'll do anything for him. The guys really love him. It sounds like he really knows what he's talking about. He's one of the youngest coaches to ever win a finals. He's deserved a lot of credit for this run that they've went on, and I think he's really sounds to most of the doubters. Also, of course, gotta give a shout to Al Horford getting it done, getting himself off the list of top 3 most games played in the playoffs without winning a championship. He was only behind, I think it was Karl Malone, John Stockton was below him. Al Horford is an NBA champion, of course, as a Thunder fan, watching him play for about half a season. He was great here. I was really excited to see him get the chance to compete for a title in Boston. He goes ahead and gets it done. Just cool to see a guy that's played so many impactful minutes throughout his career finally get over the hump and win that championship. Maybe the guy that I'm most happy for out of this entire equation. Shout out to Sam Hauser too. He's a UVA guy. I went to UVA, so happy for him. Happy for this whole Celtics squad getting it done. And yeah, I think those are my overall thoughts on this Celtics team. I saw this coming. It was pretty obvious to me that they were the best team all throughout the year, start to finish. There were very few moments ever where they didn't look like the best team in the league. The record said so, the numbers, the eye test, if you watch them, they were completely dominant, and they showed exactly why all throughout the playoffs. I know there are going to be the detractors, the people that say, oh, they played some injured teams, the East wasn't that good. Well, they themselves were injured with KP being hurt. The Eastern Conference, I don't care who was healthy, nobody was messing with the Celtics team, in my opinion. And even with the Mavericks, who were healthy, like, you can talk about Luka being kind of banged up, but they beat that whole Western Conference that was really scary, and then they come in here against Boston and they get blown out for a number of games and lose in 5. The Celtics were just that good. I don't know why people don't want to admit it. Hopefully people do sooner than later, because eventually we're going to acknowledge that this Celtics team is one of the most dominant squads that we've seen in a long time. They'll get that recognition eventually. I don't think it's going to set them for a while, but for the moment, the Boston Celtics are NBA champions, and I, for one, am not surprised whatsoever. Do also want to go ahead and, before we wrap up, give a shout to the Dallas Mavericks, because they had an amazing season. I know they didn't get the job quite done, but making it to the NBA Finals in the first full season with Kyrie and Luka as your backcourt was extremely impressive. Luka, top 5 player in the world, I think showed a lot of why people consider him so highly throughout this run. He was amazing. Kyrie, despite the struggles in the finals overall, was ridiculous. They don't reach this point without him. PJ Washington, massive pickup, as well as Daniel Gafford, both had big moments. They have to find a way to retain Derrick Jones Jr., because even though he struggled in the finals overall, really good season from him. Derek Lively, way better than any rookie big has any right to be. He was incredible. Great rim protector, great lob presence, vertical threat, great in the short roll, just did all the little things really well. Even shot that corner 3 seamlessly in game 4 for Dallas. Hopefully we see more of that going forward, because it looks so good, and I know he can shoot that shot, just has to get the confidence to do so in games more often. Shout out to the Mavericks. We'll see if they're back next year. The Western Conference is going to be a bloodbath, but they are one of the top contenders in the West going into next season. I'm really excited to see where they go from here. What do they change up going to next season? Because I imagine they try to make some type of moves to just improve on the edges. You can always get a little bit better, especially after losing the finals, and we'll see where they go from here. But as long as they're being led by Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, the Mavericks are always going to be a terrifying team to face, especially coming from a Thunder fan. You know, I saw firsthand how great the Mavericks can be, and I'm excited to see what they and the rest of the Western Conference looks like going into next season. I'm really excited for next year already. We're super close now to the NBA draft, to free agency starting, to Summer League coming up. I'm sure there will be blockbuster trade rumors, or maybe even trades themselves throughout the summer. It feels like it has a chance to be a big offseason. I cannot wait. And of course, there's going to continue to be videos all throughout the offseason. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be doing a lot of reaction stuff to the draft and to free agency, trades, of course, when they go down. I'll be making videos surrounding like historic topics. That's what I usually do during the summer, is I kind of go into retrospective mode. I talk about like great championship teams, or maybe forgotten squads, great players, just fun NBA stories that I like in particular. If there's anything that you want to see me cover throughout the summer, let me know down below in the comments. There's also always a Google form I have in my descriptions if you want to submit video ideas, and if I use one of those after looking at it, I will make sure to go ahead and give you credit in the video. But yeah, that's all for me for this 2024 season. I can't thank y'all enough for all the support you showed. This was the best season on the channel easily, and I've got some really cool stuff individually coming down the pipeline that you're not going to want to miss. So leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. One more time, congratulations to the Boston Celtics on winning the 2024 title. Congrats to Celtics fans. Hopefully, as a Thunder fan, I'm doing that next season. But for the moment, I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.